In an offseason that's likely to feature several moves, Lou Lamoriello made the first on Wednesday. We've got that and a lot more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Thursday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Well, we have got a lot to discuss on today's show, but first, if there's something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, you can email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You can also follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you can follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long during the offseason. That's hirings, firings, trade rumors, the draft, free agency. If it's happening to the New York Islanders, we'll have it covered for you here on the Locked On Islanders podcast. And it's always great to talk a little Islanders hockey with you, game time or anytime. So we are expecting, Lou Lamoriello, for the first time in a few years, did not simply say in his postseason press conference, oh, yeah, I'm very happy with the core. I'm very happy with the team. Everything is going to be exactly the same. That is not what we saw or heard from Lou Lamoriello this offseason. And that means that possibly, hopefully, the Islanders are going to make some changes this offseason in order to get this team. The roster should be a better fit for the type of system Patrick Roy wants to run. And one of the things that, has to happen, the Islanders don't have a lot of cap space. Every day, as you know, we've talked about that lack of cap space and what it means for the team. And with that limited cap space, it was about $6.4 million. They still had to re-sign a number of their own restricted free agents or potentially unrestricted free agents, and then figure out how to add some speed, some scoring, maybe some toughness to this roster, wanting to get younger, faster, and more skilled. Well, one of those things did indeed happen on Wednesday. Usually the NHL tries to tell general managers and teams, don't make major announcements during the Stanley Cup final. Keep the focus on the actual series itself. And it seems like after the Edmonton Oilers won Game 5 in Florida on Tuesday night, and there wasn't going to be another game until Friday night, people said, you know what? We're going to make some announcements. So you had a couple of trades, Pierre-Luc Dubois getting moved. You had Jacob Markstrom going from Calgary to the New Jersey Devils, and the New York Islanders also made an announcement. They have signed forward Kyle MacLean to a 3-year contract extension. And later on Wednesday, it was announced by Cap Friendly that the cap hit for those 3 years is $775,000. So in my mind, you knew the Islanders wanted to keep Kyle MacLean. I think that certainly made sense. He played 32 games for the big club, 4 goals, 9 points, a +5. took 26 shots on goal in those 32 games. To me, the big issue, 60 hits, that's roughly 2 hits a game. The big issue for MacLean, in my mind, is that he's not yet great in the faceoff circle. And here's a kid who's already 25. It's not like, if he puts on a little weight because he's 18, he'll then be ready to be better at the faceoff circle. If I'm Kyle MacLean, the one thing I need to work on more than anything else is just being ready for the playoff, for the face-off. Be practicing his technique, his approach, and all of that. It is something he will need to do to solidify himself as a legitimate full-time NHL center. Now, he can also play wing. And it may very well be the case that if Casey Cizikas, for example, remains the fourth line center or goes back to being the fourth line center, that Kyle MacLean plays fourth line wing. And, he could be your, if they chase Cizikas out of the dot, out of the faceoff circle, you go with MacLean. But overall, MacLean added a good forechecking ability, occasional offense, even scored a goal in the playoffs for the Islanders in game 1 against Carolina. He's not afraid to hit. He even dropped the gloves in game 2 of the playoff series. Here is a guy who is younger, is a little faster, adds a dose of offense. And I think based on all the information we have, the fact that Lou Lamoriello was able to sign him for 3 years at $775,000 per year, you're getting cap relief in the sense that you're not. Here's what fourth line guys are supposed to cost. You get fourth line guys on your roster who are younger and who are not going to cost you in excess of $1 million, $1.5 million tops for your better fourth line players. So here's a guy who's entering the prime of his career, who has proven over the course of 32 games plus 5 playoff games that he's NHL ready, and you sign him to a reasonable cost 3-year deal. To me, this is a win-win, and you check one box off on the list of things that Lou Lamoriello had to do. Now, we still need goal scorer or preferably 2. Ideally, you still need a puck-moving defenseman, and to do any of these other moves, you need to move on from some of the older players who are a little more high-priced and who are not producing up to the level of their contracts. That still hasn't happened, and we are still essentially waiting for Lou Lamoriello to make that deal. And I don't anticipate any buyouts. Any buyouts can't happen until I think it's 48 hours after the Stanley Cup final ends. But I don't expect any buyouts or major trade announcements coming from the New York Islanders until the Stanley Cup final is over. What does that mean? Well, it means that the next, let's say, 3 weeks between trades, the draft, and free agency, between now and let's say July 15th, give or take, 3-4 weeks, they're going to be very busy and very telling, and we're going to learn a lot more over the next few weeks about how different, if at all, this New York Islanders team is going to be. But look, everydayers, I am critical of Lou Lamoriello when he makes moves that I think are mistakes. But I will also give him credit when he makes moves that I think are good. And I think signing Kyle MacLean to a 3-year deal at $775,000 a year, that's a good move. That's a low-cost move to solidify your bottom 6 and not take up a lot of cap space. Again, to me, if you make this move and you don't re-sign Cal Clutterbuck and Matt Martin for next year, or you sign them at very, very reasonable rates, which, again, something similar to what MacLean is making, which won't happen. I think these are small steps forward for this Islanders team. Does the signing of Kyle MacLean make the Islanders all of a sudden a contender? No. Is it one step along the road to making this team a little better next year than it was this year? Yeah. Small step? Yeah. But again, I think it's a good move. And, if MacLean ends up being better than he was this past year when he kind of made his NHL debut, you got a bargain. If he doesn't, you can always send him back to the AHL, put him on waivers, whatever you need to do. And the cap hit that you're risking is minimal. And that, to me, is also a good thing. So hopefully this is the first of many moves we're going to see over the next 3-4 weeks. But we will keep you posted every step of the way right here on the Locked On Islanders podcast. We have got a lot more to discuss on today's show. We'll continue our look at draft prospects. Cole Beaudoin, a possible player the Islanders could take in the first or possibly the second round if he falls that far. We'll profile him. Plus, we continue our player-by-player look at the Islanders season with Grant Hutton and Ken Appleby, two guys who played minor roles on the Islanders. Will they play any role next year at all? We'll talk about that. Plus, for our Islanders birthday of the day, a player who was on all 4 Islanders Stanley Cup winning teams and may have been a part of one of the most one-sided trades for the Islanders in franchise history. We'll talk about that and a lot more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time makes getting tickets even faster and easier, and prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off, first pitch, dropping of the puck, kickoff, whatever it happens to be. They've got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and you get their lowest price guarantee, so Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. My favorite feature on Game Time, the view from your seat. You go on to the app, and you can see the view from your seat before you purchase the tickets, and it's a panoramic view, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So we're going to continue our player-by-player look at some players the Islanders could be selecting in the first round of the NHL Draft. And today we're going to talk about a player from the Barrie Colts, Cole Beaudoin. And Beaudoin, basically 6'2", 209 pounds. He's 18 years old. He's a native of Canada, Ontario, and played for the Barrie Colts for the last 2 seasons, played 67 games this year, 28 goals, 62 points, 27 penalty minutes. He was a +2, add 2 goals and 5 points in 6 playoff games. And he is a center. The Islanders certainly can use a little depth at that position. Now, he is the son of Eric Beaudoin, who played 3 seasons, parts of 3 seasons in the NHL. And I think that shows. He's smart. He certainly has a good hockey IQ, and he's very strong. Already at the age of 18, he looks the part of an NHL player. And he is strong on his skates and strong with his stick. He's not fast, but he is a good skater once he gets up to speed, and that allows him to be very effective on the forecheck. And you combine his strong skating, even if it's not fast, with his hockey IQ, and he's able to both forecheck and backcheck very effectively. And that really does make a difference. He's got a strong, intensity level. He's always going after pucks. He does not give up even late in games. He is there to really give you kind of an all-out effort, and he's smart in all three zones. He's already been an alternate captain in the Ontario League, could be a captain. He's got that leadership ability, and that is certainly very good. He's respected around the league. He is viewed as a late first round or second round pick, depending on which scouting report you read about him. Basically, his compete level and his shot are his biggest asset. He's kind of viewed as a middle six center by most scouting experts. He's physical, doesn't mind going to the dirty areas of the ice. That is also very, very good. And, I guess the big question is, does his solid all-around game with the hockey IQ, but the average skating ability, or even slightly below average with the speed, does that translate to the pros? I think it will. I think he would be a solid pick for the Islanders. If they could get him in the second round, he would be an absolute steal. That is something that, if you get him in the second round, that's a steal. If you get him in the first round with the 20th pick, it's not a bad pick. The player that a lot of scouts have compared him to is Andrew Kopp, if that gives any of you a better idea of where we're coming from. And, he's the kind of guy that you like his intangibles, you like his IQ, you like his physicality. You just wish he could learn to skate a little faster. He doesn't have the speed. And I know getting faster is one of the things this Islanders team does need. But again, because of his hockey sense, I think we're looking at a player who could probably get to the NHL, and his size. I think between those two factors, he could probably get to the NHL a little bit quicker than some of the other prospects on this list. And you'll know he'll be reliable defensively. He'll be smart with the puck. He'll be the kind of guy, when he doesn't have the puck, you can rely on him to pick up his man, to back check. These are things that Lou Lamoriello and the Islanders organization have prized over the years, and the lack of these things has hurt guys like Oliver Wahlstrom, for example, who, or guys like Joshua Hosang, who never really got the away from the puck part of the game down, and it ended up preventing them from getting long-term looks in the NHL. Now, again, there's other factors involved, but right now, Cole Beaudoin really has those little things that the Islanders look for, and I think he would be a fan favorite because of the way he competes and the way he plays game in and game out. All right, we have got more to get to on today's show. We're almost done with our player-by-player look at the Islanders, and we will finish that up, by the way, tomorrow. But today, we're going to take a look at two players who just played a couple of games with the Islanders this year, Grant Hutton and Ken Appleby. But for our Islanders' birthday of the day, a 4-time Stanley Cup winner with the team. So make sure you join us for that. And we'll look back at one of the more intense playoff games in Islanders history. So make sure you join us for that. We've got all that and a lot more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Hey, Islanders fans. I want to take a moment to bring up one of our partners, the mobile game Ultimate Hockey GM. Have you ever dreamed of becoming an NHL GM and managing your hockey franchise? Do you think you could run the Islanders better than Lou Lamoriello? I think a lot of fans think they can. Well, your dream can come true, and this game is most definitely for you. Manage every strategic aspect of your team, play through the seasons, and lead it to glory. Hire the right coaches and staff, trade players or draft picks, navigate through free agency and the draft, all in a challenging and realistic game world. As an Islander fan, you know there is no offseason. GMs are constantly making moves at every point of the year to improve their team's chances, and that's why I think you're going to love this game. Ultimate Hockey GM is completely free and playable offline. Play on the go as you want and when you want to. By the way, Locked On Network listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On NHL in the game store, so make sure to check it out. To download the game, just visit hockeygm.app or look it up on the app stores. Ultimate Hockey GM, start your dynasty today. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. All right, we continue our player-by-player look at the Islanders, and today two-bit players, really. And those two players are guys who only had a cup of coffee with the Islanders this year. Grant Hutton and goaltender Ken Appleby. Now, let's start with Hutton. Hutton played 2 games for the Islanders. He was a +1 in those 2 games. Did not register a point, but he did play 54 games for Bridgeport, 2 goals, 16 points, 30 penalty minutes, and he was a -1 down in the AHL. Hutton is not a prospect anymore. He's 28 years old. He will turn 29 next month in July. He's a native of Carmel, Indiana. He's got good size, 6'3", 206 pounds. But here's the thing. Grant Hutton is under contract with the Islanders for 1 more year at $775,000. And look, he is going to probably spend most of the season, again, in the AHL, barring an amazing jump in his play, which I don't expect at this stage in his career, or significant injuries to the Islanders. Now, he's a right-shot defenseman. He is the kind of guy that you could easily call up in an emergency and rely on him to give you 12, 14 basic, simple, straightforward, relatively mistake-free minutes. And then after a game or two, if the injured or ill players are ready to return, you send them back down to the AHL. You're not in danger of losing him on waivers, and if you are, I guess you can live with that. You know Hutton's going to give you an honest effort. He's experienced. He is smart. He's played 18 career NHL games, 1 goal, 4 penalty minutes, all of those games, by the way, with the Islanders. And I expect, again, that his role will be very much the same. As for Appleby, he played 1 game this year with the Islanders, actually 1 period. Gave up 2 goals, so he had a goals against average of 6.00 and a save percentage of .750 as he stopped 6 out of 8 shots. Played better at Bridgeport at 2.85 goals against, a .901 save percentage, and was 10-10-1 on a team that was way below that. Played 2 games also in the ECHL with the Worcester Railers. Here's the thing about Appleby. He's 29 years old, will turn 30 in April of next year. Not the kind of guy you would consider a prospect at this point. And it was clear to me that the New York Islanders coaching staff did not have enough confidence in Ken Appleby to put him in a game. They put him in the third period of a one-sided contest. And, you know, the fact that when Semyon Varlamov was hurt, the Islanders felt like they had to put Ilya Sorokin out there for 14, 15 games in a row spoke volumes about the lack of confidence they have in Appleby. Appleby is an unrestricted free agent. I would be surprised, very surprised, if he is back with the Islanders organization next year. I would expect he would sign with another AHL team or head to Europe. We'll see what, if anything, that Lou does regarding Appleby on or around July 1st, on or shortly after July 1st. But to me, Appleby, not likely to be in the Islanders' plans this year. And if he is, especially after they signed Hogberg to be the number 3 goalie in the organization, you're looking at a guy who would be buried in the minors and probably would not see the NHL again, barring major injuries, multiple injuries. All right, time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. We are a day early here, but Friday will be the 70th birthday of former Islanders forward Bob Bourne. Bourne, originally drafted by the Kansas City Scouts, now the New Jersey Devils, in the 3rd round back in 1974, also drafted by the WHA's Indianapolis Racers in the 2nd round that year. Never played for either of those 2 teams. The Islanders stole him in a trade with the then Kansas City Scouts, made his NHL debut for the Islanders in 1974-75, put together 3 seasons of 30-plus goals, including a career-high 35 goals in 1980-81, had 76 points that year, and was an important part of all 4 Islander Stanley Cup winning teams. His best playoff years, well, the Islanders' first cup, 10 goals, 20 points in 21 games, and then their 3rd and final cup year, 28 points in 20 games, 8 goals, and 20 assists. Bourne had speed, he was smart, he worked hard, and he was a big part of the Islanders' playoff and dynasty era success. One of his better games as an Islander, one of the more memorable games in the 1980 playoff run that led to the Stanley Cup final. This is the quarterfinal round, game 2. Islanders already up 1-0 in the series. This is at the old Boston Garden on April 17th, 1980. Islanders and the Bruins, Billy Smith and Jerry Cheevers, 2 Hall of Famers, in goal for their respective teams. And this game is probably best remembered for the multiple fights between Clark Gillies of the Islanders and Terry O'Reilly of the Boston Bruins. Find them on YouTube if you haven't seen them, or maybe just watch them again if you have seen them. The first period of this game was so full of fights. Like the list is unbelievably long. But for Bob Bourne, his big moment comes at the end of the game with the score tied at, well, okay, first he assists on the opening goal of the game by Brian Trottier. That made it 1-0 Islanders. But with the game tied 4-4, just 1 minute and 24 seconds into overtime, Bob Bourne scores an unassisted game-winning goal that gives the Islanders a 5-4 win in the game and a 2-0 lead in the series. This game put the Islanders up 2-0 with the next 2 back at the Nassau Coliseum. And the Gillies fights with O'Reilly showed that the Islanders were not going to be intimidated by the big bad Bruins or anybody else. For Bourne, a goal, an assist. He was a +1. He scored the game winner. He had 5 shots on goal in this game, which led the team. And this game was exciting, tough, rugged, and a vital win for the Islanders on their way to their very first Stanley Cup. So Bob Bourne, a 4-time Stanley Cup winner with the New York Islanders, he is our Islanders birthday of the day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow on the show, we'll have the latest Islanders news, notes, and happenings. Plus, we will complete our player-by-player look at the Islanders season with goalie Semyon Varlamov, and we will also have another draft profile of a player the Islanders could take with the 20th overall selection. So make sure you join us for that. Until then, have a great day, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.